All right. Welcome to Against the Stream. My name is Jason Murphy. This is Monday night. Normally I'm here on Wednesdays. I teach the Wednesday night class. So those of you who've never met me, welcome. Good to meet you. Noah and I have been Dharma friends, and he's been my teacher and my cellmate and my running buddy for 35 years. So honored to sit in for him tonight. He's not feeling well and wants to rejuvenate himself before the retreat, which is next week. So I'll be covering for the next 2 weeks, tonight and then also next Monday. How many people here are going on the retreat? All right.
Am I the only one?
No, you weren't the only one. There was probably a few hands on the Zoom too. So yeah, so we're gonna meditate for a little bit, and then we'll open up for some questions. And I'm not sure what I'm gonna do yet. I have a couple ideas of what to talk about, but we generally practice meditation. Someone is jibber jabber. There we go. We generally practice Buddhist meditation from the Theravadan and the Thai forest tradition here. That's what we do. That's part of our lineage, our teachers that are monks, and some of the first to bring Dharma to the West. We have had the honor of training with, sitting with, practicing with, studying for many years. Yeah. So why don't we just take a few minutes actually and just kind of turn towards each other. One of the things that we're really kind of big on here is community, is Sangha. And the idea of just kind of turning to someone close to you, just introducing yourself, what brings you here today. If there was something in your day that you feel like sharing, feel free to do that. And I'm going to break you guys out in groups. I think I can do that here. Right? Let's see. We'll go 4 for you guys. See you in a minute. And so, yeah, if you guys can just turn maybe 2 or 3 and just take a few minutes, introduce yourselves.
I'm Nancy.
Nice to meet you as well.
Nice to meet you.
Good to go to retreat.
Yeah.
Well, I actually texted Noah today. My son is going for surgery.
10 seconds. And we're back. Hopefully that worked. I kind of don't know what I'm doing. Could you guys give me a nod? Did you guys get to break up into little groups? Okay, great.
We discussed 80s pop.
80s pop. All right. Insurer. What was that? No, that's a drink. What are they called? Erasure? I don't know.
Erasure. That's what you came up with, right?
It's like mod. I don't know. I have no idea. 80s pop. MC Hammer. What was that? All right. Well, welcome. How many people were here last week? Great. Did Noah talk about the personality types? Was that last week? Yeah. Okay. Well, I may continue on that theme because I enjoy it. It's a good theme. And I did think that as far as meditation goes, that we would actually work with one of the antidotes to one of the personality types. So that would be the aversive type. And does anyone have an idea what the antidote would be? Loving kindness. Yeah, metta. One of the ways you can know that you're an aversive type or not is if you don't like loving kindness meditation. If you're like resistant to it. I found this to be true for myself early on. And then using, I was kind of attached to resentment. I felt like resentment kind of fueled my life. And metta helped. So we'll do that as a practice tonight. So how many people have done the metta practice? Good, quite a few. Great. So just to say a little bit about the heart practices in general, the heart practices are as important as the wisdom practices. And if you think of liberation, freedom from suffering, like it's often depicted as like a bird of freedom, that there's two wings. One wing is the wing of wisdom, which is the Dharma and the contemplative and the inquiry and the concentration and mindfulness. And then the other wing, it would be considered the heart practices. And that takes both wings to be strong and balanced for freedom or liberation to take place or to take flight. That's one way to think about it. And for a long time, I had one strong wing and one little chicken wing, right? And because I focused a lot on the wisdom practices, on the concentration practices, I felt like that was my calling. I also just felt like I was young. I'd started martial arts, and that's what started me into the Zen practice, which was very austere and very ardent was the word that they used to use a lot. This is an ardent practice. And so I had this real strength kind of warrior practice for a long time where I would sit for hours and, whatever. I would be in monasteries, and I thought that was, the way. And it was helpful to learn how to sit for a long time and to sit through pain and discomfort. But I also found that when I was off the cushion, I was still as angry, as resentful, as quick to, or in the early days, quick to violence, at least verbally. And then over the years, I started to realize that I needed to have a softer approach, a little more compassion, a little more kindness, a little more selfless joy. And this is where the heart practices really came in for me. I'd heard the teachings of the heart practices before, but I was I just kind of dismissed it as a later addition from the hippies in the late 60s, early 70s. They all came back and they had done a bunch of acid and they were like, yeah, peace and love. And let's add that to the Buddhist teaching and make it more, whatever. So that was my early understanding, which was a total delusion, a misunderstanding. And then later finding, oh, it's as relevant, as important. Same thing like with walking meditation. Those of you who are going on the retreat, if you've never been on a retreat before, there's this sitting practice, and then there's this walking practice, as important as the sitting practice. We tend to emphasize one over the other. And some people emphasize even heart practices over concentration practices or mindfulness practices. And so, all of the Buddhist teachings are all-encompassing. And just to kind of run down the list, the metta practice, or what's sometimes are not just the metta practice, but the heart practices, which is sometimes called the Brahma Viharas, the dwelling place of goodness, or the home of the godliness in some ways is sometimes what it's thought of. Start with metta, with this kind of positive regard, friendliness, kindness, developing that within ourselves, towards ourselves, which oftentimes people forget, right? And then extending that out in all directions. Same thing with compassion, having compassion for ourselves, for our own suffering, and then also developing compassion for the others in the world and just suffering in general, the suffering that all beings experience. The third being what I like to call, often called sympathetic joy, but I like selfless joy. It's one of Thanissaro Bhikkhu's translations, which I just find it works better. To me, think of the idea of selfless joy is the idea of having or developing joy in the goodness of others, in the success of others. This is a direct counter to envy or jealousy, selfishness. So this idea of selfless joy. And then the third, or the fourth rather, is equanimity, balance, this kind of balanced heart mind. And so that's the kind of group that I'm calling the compassion wing. And we're going to focus on loving kindness, which I'll say a little bit more about, but is an antidote to ill will or resentment, anger. So finding a posture that's workable, that's sustainable, particularly when doing the heart practices, it's good to sit in a way that feels both relaxed and alert. I pretty much always say that, but there's no need to get in a position that's going to be painful for you. Although we can send loving kindness to the pain. Good, and just settling in. And just opening to the comings and goings of sounds outside the room, sounds inside the room, arriving here. This sitting, breathing body. And then in some way, the invitation is to find some kind of contact with your, what's called the heart space or center, or just feeling the breath in the chest. This place of original goodness. Sometimes people call Buddha nature. The heart's honest aspiration for goodness, goodwill, positive regard. And seeing if you can get into some contact. Sometimes I envision a gem of original goodness, kind of buried in the chest. And with each breath, this gem glows a little brighter. Bringing some awareness to our own desire for happiness and contentment, for health, ease, well-being. Of course, the mind will wander off. It's not a problem, it's just what minds do. Whenever you recognize that the attention has wandered off, the invitation is to reconnect with this center, this heart space. If you like, envision the gem. And then inviting some simple phrases. Of course, I'll introduce a few phrases, but if you have your own, then just use your own phrases. We'll go through the phrases a few times. This first phrase, may I feel safe. May I feel safe in this world, in this body, in this life. May I feel safe. And just repeating that phrase to the rhythm of the breath, or saying it in your mind, and in some way dropping the phrase down into the heart. May I feel safe. May I feel content or happy. May I be content or happy. May I feel healthy and strong in mind and body. May I feel healthy and strong. May I live with ease and well-being. May I live with ease and well-being. May I feel safe allowing the word safe to drop down into the heart. May I feel safe. May I be content. May I be content. May I be healthy. May I live with ease and well-being. May I live with ease and well-being. Again and again, just recognizing when the attention may wander off or there's some story. Just acknowledge future or past, and then aim the attention back. This breath, this heart space, this phrase. May I live with ease and well-being. The invitation at this point is to just use the one word with each breath, just repeating the one word of each phrase. Safe. Content. Healthy. Ease. And allow some space between each word, allowing it to drop from the mind down into the heart with each breath. Safe. Content. Health. Ease. Noticing what arises in the mind and sending some ease and well-being there too. Collecting this energy, this feeling of goodwill, kindness, of positive regard. And as if this gem had begun to glow so brightly. That it shines beyond our own bodies and extends in all directions. Those in front of you, behind you, everyone in this room, next to you. May all beings feel safe, be content, feel healthy, and live with ease. Extending this wish for everyone here in the room, those out in the Zoom, connected by this intention of goodness, kindness, friendliness. Those known and unknown to us. Extending even beyond this room. Loved ones, family, friends, people that piss us off. The bad driver. May all beings feel safe. May all beings be content. May all beings be healthy. And may all beings live with ease and well-being. There is a teaching you can search the whole world over and not find another being more worthy of your own kindness and compassion. So bringing that wish, that intention back to your own hearts, your own minds. Safe, content, healthy, ease. Relaxing into that space of loving kindness and care for our own minds, our own hearts, our own lives. And then in the next line of the teaching, you can search the whole world over and not find another being less worthy either. Extending out, those known and unknown. May all beings everywhere be freed from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings everywhere know the feeling of safety, being content in their heart, Feel healthy and strong. And live with ease and well-being. Thank you for participating, for meditating with me. Perfectly timed. So I'm just curious, kind of what was that experience like? Was it easeful? Was it relaxing? Was it filled with good feelings, or was there torment in the mind and every reason to not be content or happy or feel safe? Does anyone want to share?
This is my first time here, and I really want to thank you. It really helped me to relax. You know, I'm still new at meditation, so bless you.
Great. Thanks, Russ.
I also found it very relaxing. Kind of a stressful day.
Good. I think sometimes that's the relaxation is a vital first step, you know, especially coming in after a busy day or chaos or, you know, whatever the situation
It
was.
doesn't always happen. either.
Exactly, exactly. It doesn't always happen.
Yeah, just that time.
Yeah, no, great, great. We have to be careful though, not to be so relaxed that we fall the fuck asleep, right? Yeah. So much work to not fall asleep sometimes after a full day, or just, you know, going on retreat sometimes. Like I heard, I've never been to a retreat like this, but I heard that there's some retreats where they just lay mattresses out and like, or they just give you full permission the first 2 or 3 days. Just sleep when you want to, just relax. Because through that relaxation, we're able to then have more concentration, more mindfulness. But if we're just like fighting the tiredness, I mean, I've been on some long retreats where it's like, it's a struggle the first few days. It doesn't matter the length of retreat, it's going to be a struggle when we're first coming from, you know, our busy life into a space where we're going to meditate or, you know, try to gain some insight. So I'm happy to be a conduit for that happening for you and for you online. Did anyone have the opposite experience? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't meditate a lot. So my head was more, I was listening to the voices.
Uh-huh.
And there was a point when you were talking, I was following what you were saying. So I got to that point where I think that's next.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we see the most and all that. So I was a little kind of emotional.
Mm-hmm.
So that meditation made me like stabilize my emotions.
Oh, before you came, or before you were a little bit more emotional,
Yeah.
and this helped you to kind of stabilize. But then your mind was wandering in sounds, and yeah, that's the mind, you know, that's what happens. Yeah. Yeah. No, Juan, go ahead.
I'm trying to make this short because so much comes into my mind when I think about
pride myself at this point in that's a trap in itself or having to put this one practice rates. COVID's been good at that sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm putting in about 45 to an hour on just metal.
Mm-hmm.
And then, try to do the same with inside. Doesn't always work that way. I'm finding that I have three types of reactions with it. Sometimes I find that it's a really good concentration practice. You generate a lot of warm feeling, you feel very positive, goodwill. You can even get a kind of buzz from it.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like an edible type buzz.
Right.
For lack of another way.
For sure,
maybe
for sure.
compare it to. Other times you're just planting the seeds, you're just reciting the phrases, there's no energy, and you're just pretty stable. Just put the faith and planting the seeds, sada, and the rest. Tonight was one of those nights though where doing the practice, I'm a very aversive person. I think I fit the word person first night. I'm unfortunately very strong. And a lot of the resentment kicked in. Sometimes I find when I do metta, I think about being safe, and I think about times when I was put in direct threat by people I was related to. I might think about being at ease. I can think about never being at ease in the household. It was until I moved out.
Right.
So those resentments kick in, and unfortunately, this was one of those practice times where that kicked in a big way. I was okay. I feel the temperature. I feel the heat. The story totally started. Try to stick to the phrases. But the resentments started replaying and replaying. So tonight I had the opposite reaction.
Yeah.
And I'm trying not to hold on to the idea of like when I do metta, I want this.
Yeah.
Because that's another trap. So that's
Thank you. Yeah, no, you described perfectly the kind of the three common experiences that people have when they do metta. One is to become agitated, and you say things like, may I be content or may I be happy, and then all of your memory just kicks in of all of the reasons why you haven't been, you can't be, particularly why I use the word safe, actually. Because for one, it's so important for us to feel safe in the world. The world isn't going to be safe, but can we feel safe? And can we feel safe in our bodies? Can we feel safe in this room? Trying to find incremental moments when we can feel safe is so vital, so important. And actual responsibility of the Dharma, actually. It's an outgrowth of the Dharma.
For years I've practiced that phrase, may I be safe and protected from injury or harm. I would say be. It was only until recently another teacher, Melissa, said, use feel.
Feel, yeah.
The way you're setting yourself up to be in that.
That's right. That's why I changed it actually for myself on retreat. I kept arguing with myself. I'll never be safe.
Yeah.
The world is totally fucking unsafe, but I can feel safe in this moment. And that's an internal change. And then also my direct environment, how I feel in my direct environment, right? So anyway, just to kind of, and I'll get to you, Amy, but just one second. So there's the feelings of kind of contentment and kind of concentration, which are absolutely like repeating the phrases over and over, doing nothing else, just phrases. May I be safe? May I be happy? May I be, may I feel content? Whatever it is, even just safe, content. That's why I like to use just the one word, actually. It's much easier throughout the day to go just to use the one word, safe, content, healthy, ease. Just dropping that in throughout the day to a couple rounds can be really helpful. And then there's the aversion that can come, and then there is the just really feeling that kind of warmth, the contentment that can arise. So great, thanks for sharing that, Amy.
So I really was just repeating everything you said, and a lot of times I don't. I just let my mind go everywhere. But I was just like, I'm just gonna keep repeating. So like, I have like something that I can stick with, and you saying like talking the whole way through really helped. Like I like that there wasn't a lot of silence, which is why I'm worried about the silent retreat. But it really helped to like, and it was almost like I was trying to train my brain saying this, even though I don't know how I'm feeling. at least I'm not going somewhere else. So just being present.
Yeah.
And you talking through it.
Yeah, great. I'm sure there was someone else in the room that was like, would that guy fucking shut up? Just talking so much. Because it's one of the, it's no, I mean, it's just, what I'm saying is it's different for different people, right? And it's one of the things about the metta and about the heart practices is that they are more guided because, and then starting with a phrase like, may I feel safe and protected from inner and outer harm, right? That's like a full, for people who are very busy in the mind, using that whole phrase the whole way through is super useful because it's collecting the attention. It's calming the mind. And then going, less phrases and then just one word and then, maybe, I don't know what happens after that. I think emptiness or something. Ryan. We'll take a few more and then I'll do a little talk about some stuff.
Cool. I'm just gonna turn off the video to talk. Yeah, I'm Ryan. Yeah, man. Like, I've been so like when you brought up meta, I was like, fuck, just fuck. And and then you're talking about the wings and like needing the balance, and I was like, I know this guy's right, because like I'm very focused on the wisdom side, and I was like, fuck meta, and and then I was just like, but I love what this guy, I love the words, like I love the word safe. That was just really beautiful, and like trying to like practice that and go down. And I just found my mind going like, you see, this is bullshit. Fuck you. Fuck this, fuck everybody, fuck all of meta, like you don't need this. And it was just like, just spouting very aggressively. That was what I was observing while I was attempting, this practice. And I don't know. I just thought it was
perfect.
Something we're sharing. Yeah.
It was perfect. Good for you. And then you just keep going. It might be that way for a couple months, couple years. My beginning practice, it actually was desperation that led me to trying metta. I had a heartbreaking, wrenching relationship end where they were totally at fault, at least in my mind. I had no part in it, and it was just all bad. And I could do nothing. I couldn't meditate. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't do anything besides recite the phrases. And I just used the 3 simple phrases at the time, and that helped over time. And then, my mind shouting its bad advice all the time, that was the beginning of my metta practice. And like you said, yeah. And then we just keep going. And I guarantee you it's useful. I guarantee you it will change the organization of your mind, and it will create a new neural pathway so you'll have less negative self-talk over time. And actually, when the negative self-talk comes in, your mind will start to say stuff like, it's okay, you'll be all right, we'll get through this. One more breath. That's been my experience. So, see for yourself, right? Phoenix, last one, and then let's move on.
Thank you. And thanks everybody else. It's been cool to hear everybody talk. Yeah, just something that I noticed with the initial part of it, where we were holding metta for ourselves, was that a lot of what's kind of carried me initially with the practice has been, the ability to sort of make amends for all the bad shit that I did before I kind of got into recovery and everything. And so it's kind of like this idea of like oh wow, I can actually clean my life up, and like that'll be cool for me, but like the main thing is to help out my friends and to like, make it so that I don't just screw shit up for everybody. And so there was like a realization halfway through this meta practice where um, it became very personal, and it wasn't just like, oh, I'm using this just to like stop hurting other people, but like, oh, I actually might be deserving of like feeling something good. Um, sort of like going from negative to neutral was the original goal, and then it was this sort of realization like actually I could like maybe I deserve a little bit of happiness instead of like just aiming the goal a little bit higher than just non-destructiveness, but
Yeah.
maybe peace. um so that was interesting.
Sounds like you're on the path, my friend. And it is a process. It's a process. Like they say, a gradual awakening. It is a revealing. It's a excavation. We use all these different ways of talking about it. Yeah, it's also a purification of mind and heart. And this practice in particular is a purification of mind and heart. And, I don't know if you've ever been to India or not, but in India and in some other, areas and religions, they believe that if you dunk yourself in like, blessed water, then you're purified, right? So the Buddha rejected that outright. He said, if the river of the Ganges, this holy river, was blessed and would purify, then all of the fish and all of the creatures would be purified and enlightened, and every person that's ever dunked their body in that would be blessed, would be purified. And that's not the case. Greed, hatred, and delusion is still alive and well. He said the way to purify the mind, heart, is through the Eightfold Path, right? Through the freedom from suffering, the living in an ethical way, the development of bhavana, this kind of meditative techniques to look clearly and see what's happening in the mind, instead of just being, deluded, instead of not seeing clearly, right? And that this practice is a purification practice. Yeah.
Sorry to know the journey on this work, but speaking of purification, path of purification, when you find that your meta practice, you can't predict when this is going to happen, it's going to trigger. What is the skillful way of working with this storytelling? It just seems so strong that you can't. Ideally, you do the phrases, you're very concentrated, you obliterate the negative stuff, the hindrances, the thoughts. But there are times when the storytelling is really loud, it's really insistent, it's demanding, it's just coming out. And you're trying to stick with the practice, you're trying to get through the time period you've set the intention. How do you work skillfully with that? Yeah. Or should you use the skillful thing to walk or switch gears?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm really glad you asked it, and I'm going to repeat it because I think it's so useful. So what do you do where the onslaught is real, when it's like the practice, the phrases are revealing wounds of the mind? Let's just call them wounds of the mind. Sure. That is the practice. That is the practice of purification. And to me, what I have found, this is, both psychologically and, actually what I believe the essence of Buddhism is that when wounds of the mind or heart arise, particularly in metta, and you've done the thing where you go like, I see you, and I'm going to come back to the phrases. So at first you kind of just ignore it a little bit and go back. But what happens if it keeps coming? That means that there's something unattended that needs to be looked at, right? Like the Milarepa, like the story of Milarepa, right? The demons that kept visiting him at his cave. as he was in his meditation, getting super concentrated, and then all these fucking demons show up, right? They weren't real demons, they were his mind, right? The stories, why we can't sleep at night, why this world is so fucking anxious. What is the depth of depression? That's what I'm talking about. Why is there alcoholism where people decide to drink themselves to death versus feel their fucking feelings? So what I'm saying is sometimes it's skillful to actually turn toward and go, okay, I see you.
So then is that like practically speaking, saying drop the faces and switch to inside look?
Yeah,
Switch gears to inside.
yeah.
And just sit.
That could be, yeah. I mean, there's different views, right? This is my view. This is what I feel like has been helpful for me personally when I've been in those dark places, and using the phrases and sticking to the practice wasn't working. It wasn't relieving. It wasn't. And there's a way in which, and I think this is a huge thing that we should all be talking about, which is that meditation practice can be a suppression avoidance practice, right? Oh, I'm just gonna focus on my phrases, or I'm just gonna breathe, or I'm just gonna say my mantra, or I'm just gonna do, and it's actually a suppression. And I think that's useful for a time, especially if we're overreactive. If people are overreactive, they're emotionally overwhelmed all the time, they're feeling, then okay, like that's just the mind. Ignore the mind and focus on the breath. Focus on the body, focus on the phrases. But then after some time, you've been at this a while, And it's like, yeah, this is what I used to call this. They're chinks of the armor. They're pieces of the armor of my like childhood ego structure that helped me survive breaking off. That's a good thing. It allows room. It allows light to get in, right? So we have to attend to that. Yeah. Let's not be confused. This isn't like some mystical bullshit. This is neuroscience. This is psychology. This is fucking emotional work. That's what we're talking about. Freeing your heart and mind or being enlightened doesn't mean levitating and surpassing it all. It means doing the work. And that's what you're talking about. So that's why I wanted to repeat it and say, yeah, that's the work. So good for you. And I would just invite you to turn to it. I want to make one more quick point and then I'll open up. So I said earlier, what I believe all of Buddhism is really teaching us. Most of us have a tendency to avoid or to seek, right? To seek pleasurable experience, to avoid that which is unpleasant. Either by suppressing it, by numbing it out, by forgetting about it, by dissociating, and seeking pleasure, also numbing it out, distracting, and what every teaching of the Buddha boils down to, in my opinion, is when something happens, know that it happens, pleasant, unpleasant, or neither. Don't turn from it. Don't run from it. Don't fucking avoid it. Feel it. And yes, it's going to be painful. Life is painful. But you can avoid the suffering for years and years by dealing with it in the moment. And then in the next moment, be free. And then the next moment's painful. And then in the next moment, be free. And that's, in my opinion, what all the Buddha's teaching is pointing to. And he said it 357 different ways. Of course, I totally made that number up, but he said it many different ways to many different people. But the essence is, as you're experiencing thought, feeling, sensation in the body, know what you are experiencing. Allow it to be there. Allow it to pass in its own time and be free from it. And we all know what happens when we don't do that, right? Yeah, those are the night terrors. That's the trauma that doesn't leave. That's the memories that come. That's the addiction. That's the suffering on top of the original wound. Yeah. You had it. Sorry, I had to get that out.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I was, there with the whole meditation, loving yourself. This is great. Loving the people around me, and people in the room, people on the street, and family. I'm thinking of all these people, and then you brought up, people you don't like,
Yeah.
people you resent.
Yeah.
You mentioned that, but I have some resentments that I'm kind of working through and dealing with. How do we use this as meditation or to deal with some of those kind of persistent resentments that we're feeling as we're loving ourselves? How do we love people that are difficult?
It's not easy, and it takes work. And what I appreciate about what you said is that you're able to get into contact with the feeling of contentment or love or positive regard towards yourself. That shows me that you've done some work already, right? Because most people, that's the first person on their resentment list, right? That's the first person that they're never going to forgive is themselves, So the fact that there's some work, there's some tenderization there already is good. That's a positive thing. And so I told you the reason I started doing metta for the first time was because I was so resentful at my ex, right? And I had a huge part in it, of course, right? But I couldn't see that at first. It was all her fault, right? And she was doing this to me, right? And so using the phrases, the metta phrases towards myself, towards her, towards myself, towards her, towards her, towards her, towards her, towards myself, for over a time, it began to melt. And I began to see a little more clearly my part. And then I began some forgiveness practice for myself and for her. But it takes time, And we don't want to start with the worst offender, in forgiveness, in compassion, we don't want to start with the worst offender, which is usually where the mind goes, right? But not that person. And that's okay. There's some of those, but not that person. But do they still wish to be happy, do you think? That person? Of course they do. Of course they do. And so to just get on that basic, to try to get on that basic positive regard level, I was working with someone today that was saying other people are worthy of good things happening, but not me. And it breaks my heart when I hear that. But I believe that sometimes too. And so doing that kind of, oh yeah, and that, like, what is that, like, where we switch to compassion. What's that person's struggle? What's this pain right here? We all struggle in that way. Well, I'm not going to talk about all the things that I was going to talk about, because this is what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's a purification practice. This whole thing is about healing your heart. What other fucking work is there to do? Really? One of my teachers, one of my old colleagues would say, my wish is to live with an undefended heart. An undefended heart. And I've always loved that. May I live with an undefended heart. What's there to defend anyway? Any other thoughts or questions? If you guys want to raise your hand. or anything else here in the room? The personality types. Oh, there's a hand. Go ahead.
Hey, well, I just had an experience over the weekend that I feel like is very relevant to meta, and I felt like I would be remiss if I didn't uh, share that. But yeah, I had like a neighbor just do something like incredibly rude to me. And it was very interesting because I didn't, when I thought it was an accident, it was easy. Like it was, they parked behind me in the driveway because we share it. Super small thing. I woke up, had to use my car. Not a big deal. Saw it. I was like, fine. I had to go wake them up. It took like a half hour. That was still fine. I was like, whatever. They didn't know, right? And so it was pretty easy to shrug off. But then they got out and they, as they're going to move it, they like explained that they had actually done it on purpose because they don't want me to park in the driveway anymore. Not because there's like a rule or anything, they just don't want me to. And so that was their way of like getting my attention is how they explained it. And it was like once I realized that they did it on purpose, they like knew, it was a lot more frustrating. And it wasn't really anything, like I didn't have any insightful way to handle that. I just recognized like the complete difference from like being nonchalant to being like furious once I realized
Hard to
somebody's
not take that one personal, huh?
yeah, it became incredibly personal once I realized the intention. And I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, and it was still something like so small, but it bugged me like the rest of the weekend.
Um,
Yeah. And that was really tricky to get a grip on.
yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah. I mean, let me just be clear, like I don't got this down perfectly. Like I get pissed off when people cut me off, and you know, some of those old tendencies come back, you know. I'm not enlightened. I'll prove it to you every day. You know. But I do appreciate that. And it is an opportunity to practice. It's all an opportunity to practice if we choose to make it that way. So I want to just address the personality type thing because we kind of just went down which, you know, metta is beautiful and we don't talk about it enough, and it's a difficult practice. So the personality types: greed type, pleasure-seeking type, craving type, aversive type, kind of resentful, quick to ill will, quick to anger. Basically, a greed type is walking through life saying, I want. And one of the ways that, well, let me go, and then the aversive type is walking through life going, I don't want. They're constantly pushing away anything that could be painful, that could be pleasant or not, doesn't matter. They just want to push, keep away, protect, right? And then the delusional type doesn't notice either or. They're just kind of not seeing clearly, just kind of distracted. And one of the classic ways to talk about this is, okay, so a little visualization. Going to a party, it's a housewarming party. When you go into the party, do you first notice all the things that you like about it. Like, oh, I like that couch. Oh, the artwork is nice. Maybe even when you came in here for the first time, right? You start to notice the things that you like, that you enjoy about an environment. Oh, there's people that seem, oh, that person's, they're attractive, or they seem, oh, the food looks good. You notice all the things that you kind of like about an environment. Or do you come to the party and you're early because you don't want to stay very long. You don't want to talk to a lot of people, right? And you immediately begin to notice all of the things that you dislike. Oh, I don't really like the color of that carpet. Oh, I don't like the design. It's very not feng shui. You know, that art just doesn't fit there. The food, like, you know, who does Mediterranean? Right? Oh, the people that, God, there's some people that are like annoying, or, you know, you start to notice all the things that you don't like, that you're kind of, I want to just go outside and be like where there's no one, out in the back, you know. I'm gonna go check out the backyard, in the very corner. Or were you late because you couldn't find your keys and it was hard to find parking, and you walk in and you don't notice anything about the place because you just want to find your friend so that you can tell them that you're sorry for being late and that you love the place, even though you haven't really paid attention to any of it, and have a connection, right? The first is the greed type, the second is the aversive type, and the third is the delusional type. So how do we work with this? We all have bits of all of it, right? We all have a little greed in us, you know, a little miserliness. You know, the Buddha didn't call them the three poisons for nothing, you know, or the kilesas, the torments of mind: greed, hatred, delusion, right? So the ways to work with them, which is what I wanted to kind of talk about, and Noah will probably do a better job of talking about it next week or whenever. Maybe it'll be several weeks, so he would have forgotten already. He'll move on. So I'll cover it. And maybe I'll go through it again next week in a little bit more detail. But for the greed type, what's the work? Renunciation. To renounce the addicted, craving mind. To set aside that wanting. The second aspect is to be generous. Because most people who are greedy are also miserly, right? Me, mine. Because the greed type is all about me, mine, right? What can I have? What can I get? And then the antidote is to be generous. So some people naturally, because they notice this tendency of themselves, they become more generous, right? It's also where the Buddha said, start with generosity. If you can't meditate, be generous. You'll purify your heart. You'll learn to be kinder. Be more generous to yourself, to others, to the world. Right? And if you can't stop with the wanting, learn to renounce, learn to put down, set aside. And that could be whatever it is, you know. Could be drugs, could be sugar, could be sex, could be internet, could be, you know, working 75 hours a week, you know. Workaholism is encouraged in this country. Consumerism is encouraged in this country. Greed is encouraged in this country. And it's a dead end. Ask the billionaires. They have a lot of shit, but are they happy? Truly? Maybe I've met a few. I don't know. Maybe, what's his name? The guy that does all the music. Rick Rubin. Maybe he's pretty happy. He's pretty fucking rich, and I think he's pretty fucking content. I'd like to meet him. I'd like to meet him. There's probably a few that have figured it out, you know? So, aversive type, the aversive type, loving kindness is the key, right? Positive regard towards self, towards others, all day, every day, as often as possible, even though it hurts. Keep doing it. Even though it feels like it's going nowhere, just keep reciting the phrases. If your tendency is to go towards the wisdom, do some metta. I like what you were saying, Juan, about balancing it, right? If you do 2 sits a day, do 1 sit wisdom, 1 sit heart. You know, I don't care if it's 10 minutes, 10 minutes wisdom, 10 minutes heart, 10 minutes concentration, 10 minutes open, forgiveness, kindness. Delusional types, you actually got it pretty easy. Because for the delusional type, working on mindfulness, mindful, attentive awareness, what's happening in the here and now, within me and around me in any given moment. This is the goal. This is the practice. This is the antidote. Not necessarily concentration, actually, because concentration has a delusional component to it. We got to be careful of. See, one of the ways that this is something I learned a long time ago, and I kind of practiced it myself because I had natural inclinations. I used to think I was a total greed type. And I'm pretty greedy, you know. But I didn't like metta for a really long time. And then when I started to do it, I had a struggle, right? And I was like, oh, maybe I was so greedy to avoid my aversive type personality. Or just maybe, I don't know, being sober for so long, I have shifted. Although I love donuts and good, you know, I like good things, pleasurable things. I like pleasure. I do. I'm addicted to pleasure for sure. But I think it's shifted some. I hope over time. All right. So I think any last kind of thoughts or comments before we end for tonight? Yeah.
I was at a cruise with Dustin, and I heard Noah say how he likes to play poker, or he likes to gamble, but like no one likes to lose, but to be more like not so mad when like to just have fun with it, and be like, okay, you lost, but like, okay, good for that guy, you won.
Yeah.
So like me and Dustin, we always lose. Like it's just one of those days we're always losing. But it made me think of Noah just saying, just have fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's the most important part. And like, one guy won $10, and we're like, good for him.
Yeah.
And instead of just being like, stop this, like, we just embrace the funness of why we do it.
Thank you for sharing that.
I mean, I'm sorry, it's really.
No, it's I think it's useful, and what it sounds like that's practicing selfless joy. That's practicing like, oh, good for you.
Good for you is what he was saying.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Fucking bastard.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I personally, and this is where I know I'm more aversive than I am greedy, is that he's been trying to get me to like get really into poker for a long time, and I'm just not that into it because it's the giving of my own fucking money, and I'm like, no. So I'm a little bit more aversive, or maybe I'm a little bit more greedy because that's why I don't want to give it up.
But took him a while.
No, it's a practice that I think gambling is. I mean, somebody should talk to him about. But no. What I mean is like it's a practice. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's all a practice. You know.
I mean, we wanted to win that money. But
of course.
Still like.
But you're okay with it. We need to end.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your time and your attention. I appreciate you being here and coming and supporting our center. Of course, there is a bowl that is for donation, and we subsist only on those who donate to us. This is a pay it forward society. You are here because others gave to this center to allow the doors to remain open. And so there's a bowl for that opportunity for you to be generous and to practice what's called dana, which is generosity. And then there's also a Venmo just below the bowl. If you can Venmo, or you can go online and you can donate. Those of you who are connected, you can see the link for donations that Jeff put up. And there's a retreat happening next week. There might be a couple spots open if you're interested. Go to Against the Stream. I teach on Wednesdays in this room. I'll be teaching both classes for the next few weeks. And you can follow me on Instagram, where I post crazy shit about not usually Buddhism, but sometimes. The No BS Buddhist is my handle. And yeah. All right, so let's dedicate the merit. Merit is basically kind of like, where'd that? Merit is basically like the goodness that we've created here, all of us. You have created goodness by being in this room and practicing with me, with these people online. And that's what we want to cultivate. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to share it, because we don't keep it for ourselves. It's another act of generosity. So may all the goodness of our practice be dedicated to the freedom from suffering for all beings everywhere. May we first take the goodness into our own hearts and minds, and then extend out in all directions. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from suffering.